All right, joining me now is a former colleague. I guess we're currently colleagues, right?
Still,
Still kind of, yeah.
yeah,
Devon Givens. We have a lot of history going back and forth. A lot of endless nights spent with each other in the trenches of
in the
of our
trenches.
of our old station. But
Yeah.
uh, the Sixers are your primary, forte, if you will, and you do a great job with PHLY right now with the Sixers show with Kyle Newbeck and Derek Bodner. And the Sixers were an unmitigated disaster this past year. They were a dumpster fire, Devon. So I'm just going to start out with what the hell went wrong.
Well, I guess I'll start off with where everyone else goes, at least from the organizational side. We know the injuries were a big part. When you don't have the big fella Joel Embiid out there on the floor, he only plays 19 games. Paul George plays, 42? Tyrese Maxey plays 51 or 41, 52, whatever it was. That's just simply not enough. So you begin there. And once they started the season off and gave us an idea of the plan for Joel Embiid being that he was not going to play back-to-backs, which I initially didn't have much of a problem with, kind of understood that, or the load managements, and then felt like it would adjust as the season went along to maybe go away from the plan because he's playing a certain way, because his knee is holding up pretty well. The injuries are not as bad as anticipated. And the rest was helping as you get ready for the stretch run for the postseason, which we thought. After a while, that just blew up in their faces, and we saw what happened. So a 24-win season, a disaster of a season in which we thought once again that they would be in the playoffs easily. 50-win team, which is standard for them at this stage. And can you get past the second round? Some were satisfied with just getting to the Eastern Conference Finals because that's improvement. Or others like myself felt, no, when you make a big move like this with Paul George, knowing that you don't have too much left with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, a young budding star in the NBA, I want to see the finals. Well, just when we get to the finals of who you're playing against. And if you've seen what Oklahoma City looks like right now, you would understand why if they did not win against them if they had advanced, that you would take that as a successful season. So I do think that it's kind of a cop out because that's every team for every year. But in this particular case, yes, they did not have enough games, 15, 16 in total of their big three, if you will, for an 82-game season. You're not going to win when those three don't play together.
Yeah, one thing that we both, I was blowing up your phone, angry about the fact that I just said I didn't feel like Joel Embiid had been healthy since the playoffs last year. I didn't think he should have played in the Olympics. Do you think him playing in the Olympics had an effect on this past season in terms of his health, or was this just more bad luck for the Sixers where he just can't stay healthy?
I think it was a combination of both, where he just seems like he's struck with bad luck. Anytime, Pat, as you know, elbow to the face, you get a broken face. Shoulder to the face, Markelle Fultz, you get a broken face. Wrapping up a series against the Toronto Raptors in the first round, maybe for some felt like he was in the game too long. Doc Rivers left him in the game too long. Pascal Siakam swipes at the basketball. He breaks his thumb. Some bad luck stuff that happens to him. But he also has some injuries where we know that are just real injuries that he just cannot run away from. So to get back to the earlier part of the question about the Olympics, it's hard to sit back and look at how he performed in the Olympics, even though he played well, especially in the game against Serbia to push them to the gold medal game, where you saw how he labored, the big knee brace that he was wearing in the summer, and when he got on the floor in the Sixers uniform. It's hard not to look back at that and say that that played a part in it. It played a part in the fact that he could not be himself when he came back for the Sixers. Now, after seeing him like that, would that 2 months off really have done much of a difference for that? That's an answer we won't ever get. We won't know. But that is something that we can look back. And for me, I'll say it. I'll stand on it. I don't agree with you. I thought that it was fine for him to play because when you're talking about a gold medal opportunity and that was going to be his only time to compete for a gold medal, if he were to believe that his knee was good enough, playing in that and coming back to the team, which ultimately did not work out, but he felt like he was going to be able to do both, then I didn't have a problem with it, just because, again, you don't get a chance to play for Team USA every 2 years, every 4 years, whether it's the World Championships or the Olympics. You don't get to do that all the time. And that was certainly going to be the final time that he does that. So I didn't have much of a problem with it.
Yeah, so this is, I think we finally get to the root of why you don't want to hang out with me, is the fact that we disagree on this topic, why you keep ducking me in these streets. And I invite you out. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, hey, man, yeah. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, my daughter's got something.
Yeah, I got
on.
this thing going on. Yeah,
hit me with the family stuff. So everyone's going to be laughing at the loser in the movie by himself. Fine, whatever. Moving on. They signed Paul George. You had said, we expected them to have a good season. And I think every Sixers fan expected them to have a good season. Like, I famously had a tweet up in I think late November, that said Sixers will be top 4 seed and book it. Yeah, that didn't happen. And the injuries were a huge part of it. No one could stay healthy. Yeah. But do you think that a big three of Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, and Joel Embiid can work? Or is this Al Horford 2.0?
I don't think it's Al Horford 2.0. I think it should be able to work. We only had, again, a 15, 16 game sample size to get a real good look at that. It wasn't even a real good look. Joel Embiid did not finish a couple of those games, and we just did not get a chance to really see what that all looked like. Early on, when they first played those games, it may have been 5 to 7 games, and they had a really good record in those where they won, let's say 5 of 7 in that run, or 4 of the 5, how it played out, whatever it was. And it looked like that was something that could really work. But now I don't know that to be true, just because of the uncertainty of the injuries, or the availability, of Joel Embiid, number one. And then to a lesser extent, because there were some freak injuries for Paul George this past season, he also has to be included in that conversation. So I wanted to say they should work, just like I thought when they signed Paul George in the first place. But I don't have that answer, only because of what we just witnessed for the 24-25 campaign, where they didn't play enough, and they won 24 games in an 82-game season and are currently set to pick, I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit later, in the top 3 in the NBA draft. So should work, yes. Will it when they're healthy enough? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm running the interview, so I'll decide what we discuss.
Thank you.
There, just to be clear. Obviously, we'll get to that later. But looking on into the offseason, they do have a couple of pieces that are set to be free agents. Who do you expect back? Who do you expect not to be back?
I do expect Quentin Grimes to be back. The only drawback, of course, is he's a restricted free agent. So while they have the availability to bring him back and bring him back at the price that they want, if they get priced out and feel like they don't want to pay him a number that another team signs him to an offer sheet, and it's just too much, will he walk? So that number is somewhere in the 4-year, let's say $20 million range. Is that too much? Most likely, somewhere between 15 and 17 is more doable of as high as you would go. So curious about that, but I do think he would be back. Gershon Yabusele, I would like for him to come back. He showed a lot in a lot of various roles, just because he couldn't play the role that they initially signed him for, due to the fact that the injuries were happening and the other 2 players, specific George and Embiid, were on the floor, to see how it all worked out. But there's a chance that he can still come back. And that's also while he's unrestricted, depending on if other organizations, other teams saw what they saw in the sample size that they did, with lesser talent, if you will, no disrespect to Tyrese Maxey, and then everybody else behind, even Quentin Grimes, who had a really good year towards the second half of the season, where he had the basketball in his hands a lot. Will they do something like that, where, again, they cannot fit him into their salary structure, the Sixers, just because he got a little bit more from another team? Plus, Pat, will they offer him a different role where he feels more comfortable after seeing a little bit of practice, a few games where he did play with the 3 of them, and he just feels like, you know what, it's not going to work for me here. Also, yes, you are running the interview. Does it matter if they draft a certain player and then that player is kind of taking minutes away from him, where he decides, you know what, it's probably best where I go to organization X to do their thing. So I say that Grimes should be back. I think that there's a real good chance that Yabusele is back as well. But those are the two main ones that really, really matter in terms of free agency, where it goes for this basketball team. Others, Kyle Lowry, that he's one that's an unrestricted free agent. Will they bring him back? Two other players that have player options, three players, Eric Gordon, Kelly Oubre, Andre Drummond, all have player options, and you would expect them to opt back into those contracts for the Sixers season because they may not get the number that they would like on the open market.
All right, let's move on. Okay, you clearly want to talk about the draft. All right, let's move on to the draft. Now, I mean, in all seriousness, the Sixers finally get luck for the first time all season, essentially, by not only keeping their pick but moving up in the draft. I was texting you because I was in Mission Impossible when it was going on. Mm-hmm. Luckily, that movie's pretty loud. So I'm literally watching the draft lottery under my hoodie, screaming as, the envelopes are getting announced. Nobody knows around me because there's, bombs going off and stuff.
Were you screaming inside or actual screaming, light screaming?
Yeah, light scream. No, legitimately, I'm like, not getting so loud where people would look, but, I'm cognizant of my awareness. But I was pumped because, you're going into it thinking, okay, how much worse can this season be for the Sixers? Oh, I have an idea. They lose their pick and they keep their pick. They move up and they will be drafting 3rd overall. I'm pumped, but yet I know nothing about college basketball because, as you know, I'm a Temple fan. They don't have much of a program right now. So you actually follow college basketball. You follow all these guys. Who would be your selection at number 3 if Cooper Flagg is off the board? Obviously, he will be off the board, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Flagg and Harper should go 1 and 2, and right now I'm still standing on the island and planting the flag for Ace Bailey. We're a month away from the draft. That could change because of you might hear some different things about the workouts, the interviews, where it didn't necessarily go so well for him, especially with the Sixers, since they do have an opportunity to interview and sit down with these players at the combine first, and then bringing them into their facility, giving them a personal workout and see what it looks like. So right now I do go with the 6'8" forward from Rutgers by way of Georgia and select him at pick number 3. He has a lot of flaws right now. He's not a perfect player, but he is one that can score the basketball and he can shoot the basketball at that size, and something that could help the Philadelphia 76ers with that skill. Defensively, he does have his issues, but he also has some good traits there too as a pretty good help defender, team defender, and a weak side shot blocker because of his athleticism and that length to help clean up some things on the other side should his teammates need some help. Putting the ball on the floor is a challenge, it seems, at times. He does have that scoring mentality where a lot of times, well, most of the time, he is not passing a rock. He sees what he sees, and that's that orange rim, and he wants to make sure that he is the one that is responsible for putting the ball through the basket for his team. Something that he's going to have to be coached out of a little bit, especially early in his career, because this is not going to be a situation like Rutgers where he and Harper are going to have the ball, because Maxey, George, Embiid, who we just talked about extensively, plus Jared McCain, Quentin Grimes are going to have opportunities. He'll be featured, but he'll be way down. He'll be lower in the pecking order than he was, of course, in high school and in college. So things that he needs to work on, but also some really, really, really good skill set that can be worked on to refine to, like all these young players, Pat, coming in 18, 19 years of age, where they all have things that they need to improve upon. And while he may be behind Cooper Flagg and Dylan Harper and in the conversation currently with VJ Edgecombe, mostly for that number 3 pick with the Sixers, he is one that's a talent. He's a talent. He's going to drive some people nuts. He's going to drive a lot of fans nuts. Right now, it is divided, man, when you hear Sixer fans talk about this cat and what he can do out there on the floor versus what he can't do and why he can't fit for the Philadelphia 76ers. So right now, the flag is being planted, but it's not firmly into the ground right now, simply because we still have a whole month away. And there's no clear-cut 3. Like you said, they finally get some luck, but the luck stopped at 3 and not getting up to 2 or 1 where you knew you would take Flagg and Harper at those spots. So a really good spot for them to be in. Still questions, though, where they have to do their job here, do some really, really good work, and rely on their scouting to make this choice.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to remind Sixers fans that while it looks like this is a 2-player draft, another 2-player draft or alleged 2-player draft was John Wall and Evan Turner, and we all know how that played out. Like, it's a 2-player draft, but it's not, if that makes any sense. You just have to hit the pick. So I'm a little optimistic on it, more so than I think others. But then again, it's like the ignorance is bliss factor with me, because I don't know these guys. And the guy that you brought up was VJ Edgecombe. I will be flat out honest with people, because no one's watching this anyway. It's just those girls talking. Like, I didn't know who the hell he was until you texted me his name. So for those of people like me, all right, who were nerds watching movies, tell the people who the hell this kid is.
VJ Edgecombe from Baylor. He's a kid from the Bahamas. He played for the national team also, so a young player that played on their national team with other professionals like Buddy Hield, Eric Gordon, who could potentially be a Sixers teammate, where he had some good reviews for playing as a young player, as young as he is, with that national team. So for Baylor, he was a big part, obviously, of their program, making the all-freshman team and making the all-conference team. One that is 6'5", where it comes in with a defensive profile, super athletic at 6'5". Concerns about putting the ball on the floor, getting to the rack, finishing, shooting, number one offensively as well. Can he shoot at a decent enough clip where you can trust to keep him on the floor, even if he's not going to have a Klay Thompson, Steph Curry type of shooting profile, where he can still knock down some shots while he's out there on the floor. We were talking on the show, Pat, on the Sixers, on our PHLY Sixers show, and I just randomly threw out DeAnthony Melton's name by way of just talking about the Sixers offense. And then Kyle kind of went into like, yeah, think of DeAnthony Melton. While he's a much better player, we think, than DeAnthony Melton, prospect at least coming out, where Melton was drafted in the 20s. This kid's going to be drafted in the top 5 of his draft class, where this is a player that can do a lot of stuff, a lot of disrupting on the defensive end, a lot of passing lanes that we know that are important, get his hands in there, can move his feet, stay in front of his assignment. And also he just needs to, like everyone else, kind of beef up his body. The other part is, Pat, he has a different mindset than Ace Bailey. What Ace Bailey is, I'm getting mine. I'm an offensive scorer. I'm going to do all this. This kid is not to say that Bailey isn't. This kid is I would do everything that is asked of me type of player out there on the floor to make a difference. Also a player we mentioned just as an example, Dyson Daniels for the Atlanta Hawks, who just made his first all-defensive team. He was first team all-defense in the NBA. He just say, hey, put me out there next to the scoring guard, who is Trae Young, and all I'm going to do is take the best offensive perimeter player, go out there and try to shut him down, make life difficult for him. That's the type of player that VJ Edgecombe is, where he comes in and he's just trying to be disruptive on the defensive end, make all the right plays, be a good teammate, and really just impact winning is who this kid is. So while he has, again, they all do, has his flaws, it's just a matter of which flaw you feel like you can deal with the most early on that could be corrected. And then the kid maybe turns into something 3-4 years down the line where he could also be a face of the future for you with Maxey, McCain, whomever it might be here in the Sixers uniform. So the kid is very good, very talented, but there are some skeptics who do not like him either, because you don't want any more quote unquote smaller guards. He's not 6'2" like Maxey and McCain, or 6'3". He's 6'5", shorter wingspan, but there are some players who have had a lot of success, Hall of Fame careers as well, even with the shorter wingspan, because they just have a motor. They want to win, and they go out there and do all the little things to impact winning. And he seems like a player like that.
All right, I don't want to keep you here all day, but I do have 2 more at least. So you talked about the coachability thing. They have a coach in Nick Nurse who is one of the best coaches at developing young talent. I mean, the job he did in Toronto with guys like Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam, and I think he made Kyle Lowry who he is today. And he took a lot of these guys and, coached them up. And you've seen it in Philly a little bit with, Ricky Council IV, who I know you're a huge fan of, coming on a 2-way contract. And how much of an impact is Nick Nurse going to have in the decision factor when it comes to number 3 pick? Is his voice going to be heard in that room, or is it going to be Daryl Morey and Daryl Morey only? I had a stroke there. Making the call.
I just think that it's going to be the collective effort, but I think the final decision will certainly go down to Morey as the president of basketball operations. So from Morey to Elton Brand, the scouting department, and I do think Nurse will have a voice in there. We saw him at the lottery, at the table with Brand and Morey on lottery night on May 12th, where they were all together as Jared McCain was the representative on stage for the Sixers. And I do think Nick Nurse will have a voice. The question is, Pat, will he play the young player? Now, it took him a few games to get Jared McCain on the floor. And when we saw Jared McCain finally got on the floor, all right, you can't take this guy off the floor. He's too good, even as 16th overall pick. You got third overall pick, man. This player is going to have to get out there in some way, shape, or form on the floor and play for a team. Now,
people are going to want to see him.
They're going to want to see him. And now this is a unique situation because the Sixers were not supposed to be here. Forget about the top 6 part of it. They're supposed to be a playoff team. Had they done that, picking 24, that goes to OKC. You really don't care, right?
Yeah.
But this is something totally different where this one, to your point, bad luck season, but they do get the luck of keeping the top 6 pick, and they even move up 3 spots to get the 3rd overall and have an opportunity to select one of the players that we talked about a little bit earlier. So they're going to have to hit on this. So I do think, Pat, he has to know that going in, and even they have to know when he's speaking to the front office. So the front office relaying to him, we're going to have to play this guy. We're going to have to find a way to get him on the floor. And should he be playing over some of these other players? The starters, let's assume the starters are Oubre, George, Maxey, and Embiid. That's your 4. Now you have McCain, potentially Grimes, Justin Edwards, to your point of player development from a year ago, Adem Bona, and then you add Gordon and Drummond just because they are going to get their player options and most likely stick with the team as a result. So where does he fit in? Where does he break into that rotation of those 11, 12 players that we just ran off? And should he fit? And based on where he's being selected, yeah, you got to find one of those are going to be a starter, and you have to find a way to get player X, whether it's Bailey, Edgecombe, Con Knipple, or Trey Johnson, Jeremiah Fears, whoever it is, that they're going to have to find minutes on this basketball team. He's the one, Nurse, that's going to have to find a way to get him on the floor. So I'd imagine, Pat, with this player, when Nurse, Brand, and Morey are talking, how do you see him fitting in the offense, in the defense? How do you see him getting minutes for you right now? And I think that's where his voice will be heard.
All right, and last one, looking at Daryl Morey, is this his last chance? Because you said it, like they need to nail this pick. And I think I brought it up with John Marks on Philly. Like they haven't had the best eye for talent when it comes to top 3 picks. Like, okay, Joel Embiid was drafted 3rd overall, but we all know he would have been the 1st overall pick. You look at Ben Simmons, Markelle Fultz, Evan Turner. I'm missing Jahlil Okafor. Like when it comes to having this selection, they've botched it more than they've nailed it. So when you look at Daryl Morey, he's been here for 5 years, 6 years, whatever it is. He's
since 18.
Yeah. So he's been here for 7 years. He's made some big swings like Paul George. He's done some good things, some bad things, but they still failed to get out of the 2nd round. Is this it for him? Like in 2 years, if they are still sitting and they haven't reached the 3rd round, if they haven't reached the Eastern Conference Finals, is Daryl Morey out?
Pardon me, by the way, it was a 2020 season. I think it was the season right as when Tyrese Maxey was drafted. So he was Tyrese Maxey's draft pick. That was the COVID year. All of that.
You're supposed to be the expert.
2021 season, I think it was. Actually,
do you even watch basketball?
Yeah, not a lot. So that was his first season, 2021 season. Drafted Tyrese Maxey, Isaiah Joe, and Paul Reed. So he hit on all 3 of those. They're all still in the league. They're all contributing in the league. And Maxey is an all-star player. The other part, too, Pat, that you add, number 1, yes, I think this is the one that he has to hit on, and this has to be his swing. He has to get this right or else. And he's never drafted this high, Pat. In Houston, they were always a playoff team. Philadelphia, always a playoff team. He's never drafted this high. So this is the first time he's going to draft a player where he's selecting in the top 5 and even the top 10, I believe, overall for his career. So as well as he has done, Jared McCain last year at 16, Adem Bona in the 40s a year ago as well in the McCain draft. And then everyone else that we know from Maxey, Reed, and Isaiah Joe, the players in Houston that he selected, no one he has never drafted anyone as high as they are going to be drafted in June. So, yes, he has to hit on this for the organization. And I think he needs to hit on this to also make it easier for Josh Harris to keep him around.
All right, Devon. I don't know if we had a good time, but we had a time.
We always have a good time.
It would be nice if you would hang out outside of Zoom.
We'll figure that part out.
No, you're ducking me. It's fine. You're ducking me. Really quick, 30 seconds. Who wins the NBA championship?
Right now, I hate to say it, but Oklahoma City Thunder. That was my choice at the beginning of the year, and I still think that they have shown no signs in the first 2 games of the Western Conference Finals that should be anybody's choice but the Oklahoma City Thunder. Personally, right. I hope it's the other way around on the New York side.
Yeah, you're hoping Indiana.
It's not. I'm hoping New York finds a way to get through it and face the Oklahoma City Thunder, and I hope it works out for them. But right now, I pick the Thunder still.
All right, you can follow him on Twitter at Devon Givens, and then obviously watch him on PHLY with Derek Bodner, Kyle Newbeck. Those guys are tremendous. It's the best Sixer show that you're going to get, not only in the city but just in general. The knowledge you're going to get is tremendous. So definitely check them out. Devon, I would say I appreciate it, but you hit me with real bad news before we started recording, so I'm not pleased right now.
I'll fix that. I'll correct that problem.
You won't. You never do.
I will.
It's empty promises, Devon. It's always empty promises.
All
right, man. I appreciate it.